Hello everyone, I'm Deepthi Maripalli, your host for the podcast The Daily Casual, and welcome to yet another episode of The Daily Casual. Today I have with me Spurti, the owner of Gaia Living. Hello Spurti.
Hi Deepthi,
How
thank
are
you
you?
so much for doing this.
How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Okay, so let's start with the meaning and pronunciation importantly of Gaia.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
It is spelled out as GAIAA and we also have a Telugu version of it which is GA and then the Telugu letter Ya. The pronunciation is Gaia.
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 What does that mean?
So Gaia is actually derived from this Greek word, the Greek mythology. It refers to the protector of the earth.
Okay.
So when we said Gaia living, we ideally want to mean the lifestyle of someone who protects the earth.
Wow. There's a lot of meaning behind it.
Yes.
And why the Telugu form in between?
That was something very personal. I wanted to add an element of myself into it, and I'm Telugu, so I just wanted that reflected in our logo as well.
Wow. So tell us about your inspiration. Like, what made you start all of this?
I think that would be a really long story.
Yeah,
But ideally, I think where the inspiration stems from is something very personal. And I think in our very fast-paced life, we have forgotten a lot of things that we've been taught as children, that our ancestors and our families have been following for a very, very long time. And I think that sort of impacted me in a way where I wanted to take these ideas forward. I wanted to show it to the world and say, it's okay, we don't always have to follow with the trends. We can go back to our own lives and have a very nice balance.
So you were talking about a personal story connected to it. Could you tell us about it?
So I think the personal part of things has just been that, be it and of course, I think a lot of people will relate to it when I start telling these small snippets. It's that I grew up with my grandparents. Okay, so weekends were for my parents, and the entire week is spent ideally with my grandparents. And I don't know if that is the difference in the setup or the feeling of not falling into the rat race, because time and again I was taught, I would say, the slower things of life or the slow living of life.
Okay.
For example, let me take the most funnest example, like a shirt, right? Right. So even for example, this. What would we do with a shirt like this? When I buy it, I'd wear it out for as long as I can, and now I feel like the color has faded or something has happened in that accord, or it has small tiny breaks somewhere. I will then revert to wearing it at home. Right? It now becomes my loungewear or my night clothes.
Yes.
Eventually, now I have toned that also down. I've worn it for a year or so as my night clothes or my loungewear. Then what happens to it? Pocha. Exactly. So, and these I feel were like, it wasn't taught. It wasn't like somebody stood there and say, hey Spurti, this is what you do with a piece of cloth that you buy. This is something that I saw happening in my house, right? My grandmom would just pick up my granddad's shirts which are too old or like something else, cut them up, use it as pocha, maybe even my skirts or shirts, whatever, my old uniform. I've seen that happen so many times in my life that it has become imbibed in me. I don't think of it as wrong. I don't think of it
got rooted in you.
It's rooted in me because blindly, and I wouldn't say in that a sense where we're following superstitions or something like that, but it just made me feel like, oh wow, that's so true. This saves so much. Like, I don't have to go out and buy fresh new pochas every month, right?
Yes.
Nor do I have to go buy loungewear. I mean, you're wearing something at home to go to sleep, but we all want to buy really expensive loungewear for that. What is the purpose behind it? Nothing, right? It's just consumerism. Somebody has showcased a very beautiful video where the models look great in their buttery soft pajamas, so now you want to own it, right? So similarly, I think even with growing plants, be it like kitchen waste, all of these things that we now talk about as sustainability concepts, right? But things that I did growing up.
Yes.
My plants that grew in my house be it a rose plant, be it something else, was always given the eggshells. Right?
Oh, wow. Huh.
So we just throw the eggshells into the plant.
Yes.
Or we would rice water. Whatever water you've washed your rice with, normally what do? Put it down the drain.
Yes.
But I have seen my grandmom literally throw it into plants, and the way they've bloomed after that is exceptional. No fertilizer can give you that. Right?
Yes.
And on top of that, so these are several things I have seen growing up, not particularly told to me as, oh, this is sustainable,
Sustainability.
or this is how you should live. But when I saw it happening, I just saw a very minimal usage of resources to live and lead the same life that you and I do today.
Yes.
And that's what I think really inspired me, pushed me, and also made me come back or want that kind of a life again.
So you were telling that you had a life where in your childhood, like all of us did, where we reused clothes and all. So what you saw or what piqued your interest that made you bring all this concept all over again? Like, yes, there are sustainability things going on here and there, but why especially this?
Right. So the idea for me has never been sell more sustainable products, right? Then I'm again going back to the whole consumerism model. All I'm saying
Yes.
is buy my product versus theirs because I'm sustainable. But again, I'm not changing anything about the high level of consumerism. The amount that we buy, the amount that we hoard at homes, the amount of things that we own right now, right, is just enormous. For example, how many do you think you'd be able to give me a count of the number of clothes that are there in your wardrobe today?
No.
Precisely. But say you were going to go ask your grandma, right? Or you were going to go ask, even to some extent, maybe our parents, right? Maybe there was a shift, but initially I feel like even our parents, right? We had an occasion where we said, okay, this is for like if you're going for weddings, you're going for some
Ethnic
wear,
wear,
you have
fusion,
something which is like really
Yeah.
very
Big weddings.
big weddings and all. Then you have a lower version of it, right? You're like, okay, I have to go to a temple, or I have some sort of a occasion in my house, like there's some puja, there's something happening. So I don't need to wear something as expensive looking or grand looking as something I would wear to a shadi, but I can wear like a salwar, right? Okay, that works. Next thing, what else do I need? I go to work, so maybe I need a couple of work, right? That is how any day a wardrobe was set for a regular person.
Yes.
I am not comparing myself to like an influencer or a celebrity who is in that line or that job or duty where they have to probably switch up clothes and change and etc. But I'm talking about a normal person like me, myself, who would ideally, what are the requirements we have in our everyday life, right? So 10 clothes at the max.
Yeah.
But believe me when I tell you, I am also in the same position where I cannot count and tell you how many pieces of clothing I have in my wardrobe, right? And that was a very big, major starter for me, or it hit me that every month I wear only 5 or 6 sets or pairs of clothes. Whether I turn them around, whether it is the tank top or the coat that goes over or the pant, right? I have like some 6 or 7 set clothes that I wear throughout the month. It's not changing. Whether I buy more clothes or not, I wear only those.
Yes.
So then why do I have 100 million in my wardrobe when I don't wear any of them? That was one question. Same style of questioning started for every other consumption that I have in my house as well. Because I think that's where it all stems from, right? We started off with houses where you had 2 living quarters, a kitchen, your hall, and then the whole area was just like farmland or open area. You had a front yard, you had a backyard, everything. That's how our older houses are, right? Now you've come to a stage in today's life where there is nothing but just built up area. Why is that? We have so many things. So I need, if you tell me,
Comforts.
yes, I need comforts. I need to put that many things, right? Now, if you give me 1,000 SFT and say, build your life in this 1,000 SFT, I'm like, where will my washing machine go? Where will my dryer go? Where will my dishwasher go? Where will that go? Where will this go? So consumerism has really made us into this one closed loop, right? So for me to be able to buy that washing machine, to be able to get there, I need to buy a bigger home because I don't have space in a smaller setup for all of these things. Then I buy a bigger home. Now that I've bought a bigger home, I'm like, hey, I need to decorate it. How can I have a bigger home and not have all of these things? So then I want a walk-in closet, I want this. Now if I have a walk-in closet, I'd like to fill my closet up. I'd want that much footwear, I'd want that many clothes. So if you see the loop that we're in, it's always about wanting more. You're never stopping to enjoy where you are, what piece of clothing you're wearing, what amount of food you're eating, nothing. We're in this race, we're just rushing. I want to get to the next best thing. That is my goal.
Yes.
That's it.
So that's a lot. Like that actually explains about our lives in general. Like how every single person is, no matter rich, poor, or anyone.
Yes.
So, like coming to Gaia, how do you first tell me, how do you get the revenue? Because this is a sustainable store as far as my knowledge, and for any sustainable store to survive in general, you need profits, you need money. Money is the bottom line, right? So how do you survive with all, how do you manage your livelihood as well as managing this full time?
So, thankfully, and I would just like to thank my family and, the several others who have supported me through this concept and through the idea of the space. Because, yes, you're right, it becomes very, very difficult to maintain a space like this in today's day and age.
Yes.
Because you'd have to worry about rents, you'd have to worry about salaries, you'd have to constantly worry about how to make the money, because the same amount or more than that is actually going away in running the space and putting up the space. And that is something that we are facing as a concern, and I think most sustainable businesses find that as their biggest challenge. It's not just Gaia. Anybody who's truly standing to that concept and the idea of sustainability will always face this kind of an issue, because I don't want to go ask my patrons or my audience to come shop with me.
Yes.
That is not the purpose of what we do. But because I don't ask, a customer does not walk through my doors and they do not shop from me, what eventually happens is I become a redundant business. Because there's only that much investment or only that much amount somebody can pump into a business, right? And I think that just becomes a responsibility on our audience as well, to figure out and say, hey, this is a business I want to support and this is a business I don't want to support. Somebody like a Max, a Westside, they're selling something for 165, so you don't think twice and you pay that money. You pay 165 today, you go back a week later because the shirt has torn now. So you go back a week later, you pay another 200 bucks. So in a month, you are probably actually giving them a good 5,000 rupees business. For somebody like Max, that 5,000 doesn't make any difference. Profit or anything. It does not matter to them, because what Max runs on is the profits that company makes from other ventures.
Yes.
Right? But for Gaia, this becomes it. The day one customer comes and even buys a 10 rupee item from us, we are exceptionally obligated and we owe it to them, because that 10 rupees is what is running for us. That is running my livelihood and my entire team's livelihood. So I don't want it to be like, oh hey, please come shop and run our lives for us. But ideally, I think it becomes a sense of responsibility on the customer to pick and choose where they put their money. Whether a business, because for me, ideally, when a business is started, what is the end goal of the business, right? What is the purpose of starting that business?
Money is the bottom line of the business.
That is 90% of the businesses, right? Now, if you talk to venture capitalists, you go talk to anybody who's doing their MBA or who's doing a startup, right? What is the foremost thing that they get asked? They're all worried about, okay, how much money went in, how much money is coming out, how much profit am I making, what more can I drive to make that profit? In that process, my question to you would be, if I ran behind money, do you think I can truly stand up to my concept?
No, exactly. Next question. Like, you need to get money, but at the same time, it's sustainability. Like, it's
our challenge.
Complicated.
Yes, it's our challenge, and we.
So, tell me about who is Spurti apart from Gaia.
So, I am somebody who just, I think, finds beauty in the smallest of things and happiness in the smallest of things. I am somebody who just enjoys the earth the way it is. So I love traveling. I'm a huge foodie, and I genuinely enjoy like a lot of like reading, the beach.
Oh, same.
So I mean, I think I would. It's a lot of elements there that are there to me. I genuinely like all these aspects of me, and I try maximum to reach out and hold on to all of these parts of me as well.
So in our last interaction, you were telling that you were a law student, right?
Yes.
So how was that like?
So I did practice law for about 6 years before I headed into this. So my first 6 years as a lawyer, I think when I went into law school, there wasn't any other thought process for me. That's what I wanted to be. That's who I needed to be for myself at that moment as well. And I think even as a child, I've always been very advocating of social issues or certain other issues that are there. And it felt very natural and very the place to be when I told my family or I decided to take up law as a profession or education for myself.
So back then too, you were like social issues and stuff?
Yes.
So what kind of social issues were?
No, in general, right? Like any lawyer, advocacy is a part of things that you add into different elements. So when I talk about social issues, it depends on where I've interned, what are the different projects I've taken up in that course of study, and so I think in general it's always been a whole lot of women's rights and child and health and welfare, these kind of things, because law actually opened me up and my thought process up to a lot of things, in the sense that I think this will become a little existential in that sense, that what are we truly fighting for? What do we have to live for? What is our essence as a human being?
Our purpose.
Yes, our purpose. So I truly felt like, at that moment there, being a lawyer was my calling. And I, of course, eventually moved into intellectual property because that interested me a lot more, and it was all about trademarking and copyrights. It could have been also one of the reasons why I felt like it became a little too dull and drabby for me in that essence.
So, so we are at Gaia Living, and this is my second video podcasting, and I'm doing it here at their studio space, which is presented by Spurti. So Spurti, can you please tell us more about what do you do with the space and how you manage it and all?
Absolutely. So ideally the downstairs area, the way the city is moving, we have so many cafes, we have so many places where people can go, relax, chill, hang out with their friends, right? But there's always a sense of pressure because you have to buy a coffee or you have to buy some tea or you have to get a muffin, cupcake, something or the other, right? So we actually, the idea of the studio space or just the space in general was to provide a very pressureless place. It could be because you wanted to come down here to just read a book. You just wanted to come here because you have an interview and you wanted a quiet, calm place to take that interview. You just want to kind of spend some time, just want to take it slow. You just need a space that nobody's going to disturb you at, but still have that kind of a serene feeling. that is what we were going for with this space. And of course, added to that, because we have the store space upstairs, if they would like to shop or they want to pick something up, then that's always available for them.
And there was this event last week which I couldn't attend to.
Yes.
It was Mithi Se Art.
Correct, the Dorodango
So,
workshop.
tell us more about those kind of events. Like, what are those?
Right.
And why is that actually? I didn't quite understand it.
Right. So we are trying to really imbibe what we're talking about into the kind of events we curate in the space as well. So while of course the space is available for others to kind of, pick it up and then do their own events. So we've had, maybe open mics and things like that as well. But when we collaborate or when we pick and choose certain workshops, it is entirely because they have some value to the slow living lifestyle that we're talking about. So for example, the Dorodango workshop you're talking about, right? It's a Japanese art form. So what does it actually do? It's ideally just soil, right? Like basic soil that you find on the road, in your planters, wherever. You pick it up, you wet it only to a point. It shouldn't be too moist, it shouldn't be too dry. Right? And then you start making a whole ball out of it.
Okay.
The whole process of making that ball, then kind of shining it off, by the end, the result is it's not just a ball of soil or sand. It becomes hard like a rock and it has a glossy finish. So by the end, it actually doesn't even feel like soil. It feels like a paperweight or it feels like, something that you can put in your showcase. Yes, absolutely. It becomes a little piece of art.
Okay.
And I would have really loved to show you if we had one here.
That's fine.
Unfortunate, we don't have one here. But the course, the duration of that workshop, the point is that you get to know so much about yourself. So much, so that's when I realized that I have a slight issue with perfection. So I started making my Dorodango ball along with the rest of them, and at some point I was unhappy because there were cracks that were coming up, right? Because it's soil and you're just making it into a round ball. So imagine like a chapati,
with pores
this thing,
in it.
with pores in it, right? So the pores are showing up, and now I have become so how do I put it, like so anxious about it. Now my entire concentration, instead of trying to make the ball and continue the process, I need to cover up those, right? So then what happened, it got to a point where I was like, I don't like this, I'm going to break it and make it again. When I attempted it 2-3 times, I realized my first was the best. And I could have just made minute, additions and adjustments to it, and had a perfect, or what we would have referred to as a perfect end of the workshop. Instead, I was so anxious about making it perfect, I didn't end up making one at the end. So it gave me an element or an insight into myself. And the workshop was so fun, people would not stop at the end. They were still at it. They were like, oh no, we need to finish this, we need to make it, we need to make it better, we need to add more creativity into it. And while we had that whole community feeling, all of us are sitting there, we're laughing, we're joking, we got to a point where we're like, oh my God, we're appreciating each other. There were so many elements in it, Deepthi, that it added to the whole vibe of Gaia, the slow living, the natural elements. There were children, there were architects, there were older people as well, who were touching the soil, playing with it, working around it. How many times do you see people doing that every day now?
Not quite often. So this guilt has been in me since a long time that yes, we are in a fast-paced world. Like people, there are IT. Like the other day, I went to Raidak. So I was walking through the Mindspace, and in the IT park, I was looking at all the big buildings and all. Like yes, those are needed, but who is even looking after the soil? Because I felt so guilty that I am standing in front of those big buildings. Not that it's wrong. It's just that if I'm here, who is there? looking after the soil, farming and all stuff, because that's important too, as much as this is. But who is looking after that? These kind of things, they just get stuck in me, and they create guilt and all. So yeah, I don't know how I should get out of this kind of thing. But yeah.
If I can, Deepti,
Huh.
in that accord. See, all of us have different roles to play in our lives. Somebody could be an IT professional, somebody could be a doctor, somebody could be a lawyer. All of their timings are different, all of their work demands are very different, right? So somebody like a lawyer or a doctor, for example, you would never know when they'd get a call and they have to rush. And mentally also, they're not generally in a space where I think you and I could do away with the kind of worries that a doctor might, have on a daily basis. They're worried about 100 patients. They're worried about whether the right, medicine is being administered or not. In that particularly difficult lifestyle, if I sit there and I say, oh, hey, do this, do that, I know it might sound to them like, oh, do you know my timings? Do you know how much of my life goes away into just taking care of another person? And these are all valid, okay? But were they not doctors 10 years ago? Were they not lawyers 10 years
Yes.
ago? Were they not IT professional 10 years ago? It is something that we have chosen to not imbibe in our lifestyle. When I cut my vegetables, it takes me the exact same amount of time to throw it all into the dustbin versus to put it into a separate
Yes.
container, right? Now, yes, it might take me 5 extra minutes to now take the kitchen waste, put it into a composter, right? And then wash my hands. But if I am not willing to give myself that 5 minutes, and tomorrow I would rather pay a bill for a hospital, right? That is something, again, we are not stopping to think about.
Yes.
We have so many more health issues right now. We have so many more problems in general with pollution, with the kind of food intake that we have. None of us are healthy. My 90-year-old grandfather treks faster than I can ever.
Oh.
Believe me when I tell you this. And I don't think I'd ever feel like I'm at his health. And he's had a heart attack already. He's had a bypass surgery already. He doesn't even take heart medications. Because he's at a stage where he said, yes, I needed that medication for that time period. But my lifestyle, the way I am, I eat good food, I exercise, I give myself at least 1 hour in the day. Because when I give myself that kind of time, I am a better person. I handle things differently. I handle myself more healthily. These are elements that we forget. This is a wellness aspect
Yes.
of things, right? So that is another reason we imbibe workshops such as Dolodango or even our art and wellness workshops that we do here. Because the idea is to stop you for that 1 hour. Stop you from thinking about work, stop you from thinking about the 100 bills you need to pay. Just give yourself that 1 hour of time and see how better your
How positive of
how
a person
positive
you are.
and I feel like you are rejuvenated
Yes.
to work at your 100% after it.
And also, they say that every day in the morning, after you wake up, you shouldn't at least touch your phone for an hour or something. I tried it for like 1 week, and I was so good. And the other day, the next day, I was like, okay, I don't get many messages, right? So what's wrong in looking at the phone? Just looking. Turning on my Wi-Fi itself. Like, yes, I didn't get many messages. But after looking at my day, it was so, not so positive, not so rejuvenating, like you were telling, like it was before. But I understood the importance of that 1 hour for ourselves. Like, be it in the night or in the morning, I make sure that there's this amount of time for myself, because it's important, like you were telling, to connect to ourselves, like more in this day.
And a lot of people might not think so, but that is part of sustainability.
Yes.
That when you are so well connected with yourself is when you can actually be a very sustainable person. Because if I were to tell you, I can give you tips right now and say, okay, Deepti, do you usually shop a lot? Then here are a few tips for you to shop less. Right? And I can say, question yourself, ask yourself, do all of this. And maybe you'll do it once, twice. But if you're not somebody who's connected to the concept, connected to yourself, why would you ask yourself a question the third time? When you walk through the store, you'll be like, I just want it. I'm going to buy it now.
Yes.
Right? I'm not going to restrict myself anymore. Because then sustainability feels like restriction for you. But if you were, say, somebody who's like, yeah, fine, I'm connected to myself, I take the time out, I'm more imbibed in those elements, I feel, right? You would automatically think twice before buying something extra. You'd be like, oh, do I need that? Do I really need that? Right? And you for yourself are able to make that decision. There's no influencer, there's no sustainability brand that is coming at you on Instagram or Facebook and saying, hey, think about it before you buy. You yourself are imbibing these thought processes. And I think slow living or slow way of life does that to you automatically.
Wow, like I get these a lot. In these days, like in a day where plastic is prevalent, like how can you ask us to stop using plastic? I keep telling this a lot to my friends that, you should not use plastic, don't buy too much of plastic, don't do this, don't do that. But they keep questioning me that I need this for my living. I need this certain things for my comfort and certain things for my living. And in these days, like we are not living in some village or something, we are living in a city, and in city to do certain things we need certain things for us, and in that plastic is a bigger thing which people keep using every day. So I don't really understand what to tell or what to do. Like yes, it is wrong on my behalf to ask them to stop using plastic or anything, but then it's harming environment. So how do you think this thing can be conveyed? Because a lot of them who are watching too might question that, okay, she's telling all of these things, but how is it even easier in practical?
No, absolutely. So in practicality, see, when we talk about sustainability or when we say reduce consumption or don't use plastic and so on and so forth, it's not like ban it altogether from your life and now just sit there wondering, oh God, what do I use as an alternate? That's not the purpose of this at all. It is about conscious consumption. Plastic is so prevalent right now in our lives, be it in the medical industry, be it in any particular day-to-day industry that we talk about.
It's like our day from morning to night.
It has. But what you must think about is especially water bottles, right? That is one thing that everyone can make an attempt at and actually genuinely make a difference with. We're not talking about remove plastic entirely from your life. Is it so difficult for us to carry a water bottle from home?
No.
We pack a bag, we carry a handbag. If it's a guy, they're carrying a backpack. If it's a woman, they're carrying a handbag. There are several, carry-ons that we have. So it is pretty much just an excuse for us, right?
Yes.
It is just, I have to go there, then I have to go there. Carrying a water bottle doesn't look cool enough. Yeah, or me picking up my own water bottle and saying I drink from this is not cool enough now. So it is not anymore an issue or an element of can this be rid from my life? It is more of ease and convenience.
Yes.
Right? To give you another example or an idea, my husband was somebody who has to travel quite a bit, like, for his work or anything. He has to go around, or he also, maybe we have to go check out a farm or somewhere, like our own farm. We need to go there, look after, what's going on. In those instances, again, what happens, you would be like, oh, my water is going to get warm by the time I get there. And how much water will I carry? So then, no need, don't put a bottle, I'll just buy it on the way. Right? That was who he was in the beginning. Now, what he does is carries 2-liter bottles. Yeah, your metal flask. I think everybody owns those flasks nowadays, which keep your water cool for 6 hours, keep your hot water hot for 6 hours. All of that is highly prevalent, right? So why not pick up that Milton flask? Why not pick up that Camel flask? And they all have designs also. They have they have something for every age group and person. If I want a straight steel canister, I've got that. If I want some sort of design on it, I've got that. If I want something to looks like for kids, I've got that. When I have that bottle and I can fill it at home and take it with me anywhere, And water is free, guys. Why would you pay for it?
Yes.
Why? These are genuine corporates that have capitalized on something that was freely available to all human beings irrespective. And you know, the funniest thing that I'd like to tell you, do you think water expires or has an expiry date?
No.
Correct? So even if this glass were to be kept here or left here for 4 days, do you think I can come back and drink this water?
Yes.
I mean, if it's in pristine,
yes.
like good conditions, I'm not saying like
stagnant and all.
Yeah, stagnant and all that. But like, you know, if it's in a water bottle and it's been in my fridge or it's just been in my house in a bottle for like 4 days, do you think I will throw that water away?
No.
So then why have we suddenly become these set of people who are like, no, you know, refill your water bottles every day, do this every day. Why? Because it comes from the concept that a plastic bottle has an expiry date. So now I'm so imbibed or so used to that has transferred into my home also. So in my glass bottle also, if it's lying around in my house for 2 days, I will not pick it up and drink it. I will water my plants with it. I'm sure you would have seen this, and a lot of people watching this also will connect to it.
Yes.
Where even in my own glass bottle or steel bottle that it is there at my home, I will not drink it.
Yes.
I will use it for other purposes and be like, this is old water.
Yes.
How can it be old water?
Yes.
Correct? So the idea stems from the fact that, you know, we're so used to this capitalist attitude. We're so used to the plastic bottle has an expiry. When I expose it to sun, when I expose it to all of these weather conditions, the plastic will start to melt.
Yes, yes.
Right? The microplastics will get into my water. And even in a tropical region like India, we are constantly exposed to the sun. So, can you guarantee me that my plastic bottle has not been exposed to the sun when I pick it up in a Ratnadeep, Q-Mart or some cafe?
No.
Half the time I have seen auto guys with an open back transport these Kinley bottles, transport your Sprite bottles, transport your Coke bottles. Yes, they might end up in a fridge afterwards and now they don't have the sun anymore, but they were already in the sun. That element has already passed on to the liquid. So it's not just for the environment that we're saying don't buy plastic.
It's
it is
for you.
personally for you. You know, health issues, especially for women, hormonal issues, PCOD on the rise. People have found microplastics in bloodstreams, and to the extent people have found microplastics in a womb. Can you explain to me how deeply rooted it should be that it's found in a person's womb? So if these don't scare you or these are not pointers enough for somebody to say, no, I don't want something in a plastic bottle, then I don't think there would be any other reason or excuse or explanation that I could come up with that would make them say no to that plastic.
Yes. Like I have got almost all the answers for my questions that I have had since the beginning of, you know, when I started the journey of sustainability. I used to question a lot. I used to tell people not to use, but still I used to question myself, am I doing the right thing or not? But yeah, almost all of my questions have been cleared.
Nice.
My final question. So, how is this business life or entrepreneur life treating you? How has it been?
So I think in general, like this is something that I've always wanted to do, that is have a business of my own or have some sort of venture of my own. So that's something that I've always been headed towards, and I think I genuinely really enjoy it because of the different types of people I get to meet, the different things that I'm exposed to. And believe me when I tell you this, Deepti, with the kind of knowledge that I thought I already had stepping into when I created Gaia or I founded Gaia versus the amount I'm actually still learning is like enormous. And it's wonderful, and in general I don't know if it's the industry, sustainability or otherwise, but I've just only met the most wonderful human beings in my entire process, and it just, you know, it encourages you, it helps you to continue to do what you are doing because their support, their love and just their appreciation and having somebody who is there and says, no, this is what we need somebody to do, right? That just helps and boosts you in a different manner altogether.
Yes. So, any future plans?
As of now, I think we're just looking to sort of stabilize what we have, like the different initiatives that we do. For example, our collection drive and our thrift, and the workshops that we try and bring in with a twist of wellness aspect, right? We're just trying to stabilize that, create a good sense of community within the crowd that we've been able to sort of attract or bring to Gaia. And from there, you never know, our long-term goal is to kind of have as many join our community as possible, and sort of spread the word about slow living. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, you never know. So thank you so much, Spurti, for being my guest at the podcast. It was fun talking to you about sustainability. Like, I really wanted someone to, pour my sustainability passion out there. So thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to your audience as well as you for taking the time out.
Thank you.